The courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, the kind that lingers in paper cups left on tables too long. My boots scuffed against the floor as I leaned forward, elbows digging into the oak table, heart hammering like a war drum. The judge's gavel hung in the air, poised, ready to crash down on a decade of lies. Across the room, Karen Whitaker, queen of the HOA, with her peroxide blonde bob and a smirk sharp enough to cut glass, sat with her lawyer, whispering, plotting, as if she could still twist this in her favor. She'd stolen my family's land, built 90 houses on soil soaked with my grandfather's sweat, my mother's tears. And now, the court was about to rip it all from her manicured hands. 10 years ago, I was just Ellie Harper, a 20-something trying to keep the farm going after Mom passed. The land was ours, 300 acres of rolling Tennessee hills, where wildflowers danced in the breeze and the creek sang softly at dusk. Grandpa used to sit on the porch, his calloused fingers strumming a banjo, telling stories of how our family fought to keep this dirt through wars, floods, and greed. This land's our blood, he'd say, voice rough as gravel. I believed him. I still do. But Karen, she saw dollar signs where I saw roots. It started with a letter, crisp and official, tucked in my mailbox like a venomous snake. The HOA, some faceless entity called Crestwood Estates, claimed they'd bought the land in a tax sale. A lie. My taxes were paid, every cent scraped from late-night diner shifts and selling homemade jam at the farmer's market. But the county clerk, a sweaty man with a comb-over, shrugged when I showed him my receipts. Mistakes happen, he said, avoiding my eyes. I smelled the rot and corruption, thick as the summer air before a storm. Karen was behind it. She'd charmed or bribed her way into the records, forging documents to claim what wasn't hers. By the time I realized, bulldozers were tearing up my fields, and Karen was shaking hands with developers, her laugh like a hyena's cackle echoing across my stolen acres. I fought. God, did I fight? I spent nights poring over legal books in the library, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry bees. I sold Mom's old jewelry to hire a lawyer, a scrappy guy named Tom who smelled of cheap cigars but had a fire in his eyes. He believed me when no one else did. We'll get your land back, Ellie, he'd say, slapping a stack of papers with a grin. But the HOA's lawyers were sharks, circling with endless motions, delays, and smug smiles. Karen would show up at hearings in her tailored blazers, tossing her hair, calling me that poor farm girl in a voice dripping with pity. Each word was a knife, twisting deeper. I'd go home, collapse on the couch, and hear the ghost of Grandpa's banjo, faint and mournful, as if the land itself was crying. Then came Lila. I met her at a diner one rainy night, her hair a wild tangle of curls, her eyes carrying a story she wasn't ready to tell. She was a surveyor, new in town, hired by the county to map Crestwood Estates. Over greasy fries and lukewarm coffee, she leaned across the table, her voice low. Ellie, something's off with that land deal. The records don't add up. My heart lurched. Lila had found Ida buried survey from 1972, proving my family's claim went back generations, untouched by any tax sale. She wasn't supposed to dig that deep, she said, but she'd seen Karen's type before. Bullies with money, she called them, her lip curling. Lila became my secret weapon, slipping me documents, whispering tips, risking her job to help a stranger. I didn't ask why. Sometimes, you don't question an angel. The trial was a circus. Karen's lawyer painted her as a saint, building affordable homes for hardworking families. Affordable. My ass, those houses started at $500,000. She sat there, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, playing the victim while her neighbors nodded like puppets. I wanted to scream. Instead, I gripped Tom's hand under the table, my nails digging into his palm as he presented our case. The old survey, my tax receipts, emails between Karen and the clerk, uncovered by Lila's digging, proving they'd colluded to falsify the sale. The courtroom went silent, the air heavy, like the moment before lightning splits the sky. Karen's smirk faltered, just for a second, but I saw it. A crack in her armor. The judge, A woman with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing leaned forward. "Ms. Whitaker," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "Can you explain why the county records were altered?" Karen stammered, her face paling under her makeup. Her lawyer scrambled, but the evidence was a tidal wave, crashing over their lies. Lila took the stand, her voice steady, recounting how she'd found the original survey in a dusty archive box. The jury 12 locals who knew the sting of HOA fees and Karen's iron grip watched her like she was their hero. I caught Karen's eye, and for the first time, she looked small, scared, human. The verdict came on a Tuesday, the sky outside bruised with storm clouds. The judge's gavel fell, and her words hit like thunder. The court finds in favor of Eleanor Harper. The land, and all 90 homes built upon it, are rightfully hers. A gasp rippled through the room. Karen's face crumpled, her hands clawing at her purse as if it could save her. The HOA board members whispered frantically, their dream of cookie-cutter mansions dissolving. I stood, legs shaking, tears burning my eyes. Tom hugged me, his cigar scent grounding me as the room spun. Lila was in the back, giving me a nod, her curls catching the light like a halo. I wanted to run to her, to thank her, but all I could do was breathe, each inhale tasting of victory and dust. Outside, the air was thick with the promise of rain. Reporters swarmed, their cameras flashing, their questions a chaotic hum. "Ellie, what's next? Will you evict the homeowners?" I froze. The families in those houses weren't Karen. They were teachers, nurses, people who'd saved for years to buy a slice of her fake paradise. I saw a little girl in a Crestwood Estates t-shirt, clutching her mom's hand, her eyes wide and scared. My stomach twisted. This was my land, my blood. But those families, they weren't the enemy. Karen was. She'd pocketed millions, built her empire on my pain, and now she'd face the consequences. I spent weeks wrestling with it, pacing the tiny apartment I'd rented after the farm was taken. The creek song haunted my dreams, mingling with the memory of Grandpa's banjo. Lila stopped by one night, bringing a bottle of cheap wine and a map of the land. "You could keep a few acres," she said, her finger tracing the creek's path. "Build something new. A community, not an HOA prison." Her words sparked something. I didn't want to be Karen, lording over people, crushing their dreams. I wanted justice, but not revenge. So I made a plan. I'd sell the houses back to the homeowners at cost. No profit, no HOA fees. The land would stay mine, leased to them for pennies, ensuring no one could steal it again. The rest, 50 acres by the creek, I'd turn into a community farm, a place for kids to run through wildflowers, for families to plant gardens, for the land to sing again. It wasn't easy. Lawyers haggled, homeowners cried with relief, and the paperwork piled up like autumn leaves. But it felt right, like Grandpa's hand on my shoulder, guiding me. Karen. She didn't go quietly. She tried to sue, claiming I'd ruined her. The judge tossed her case out, and last I heard, she was selling her McMansion, dodging creditors. I saw her once, at the gas station, her hair limp, her eyes hollow. She looked at me, and I waited for the venom, the sneer. Instead, she turned away, her heels clicking on the pavement, a sound as lonely as a fading echo. I didn't hate her anymore. I pitied her. She'd built her kingdom on lies, and now it was dust. The first harvest at the community farm was last month. The air smelled of fresh earth and honeysuckle, and the creek song was louder, brighter. Kids laughed, chasing fireflies as the sun dipped low, painting the hills gold. Lila was there, her curls wild in the breeze, her laugh mixing with the banjo a local played on the porch we'd built. I stood by the creek, my boots sinking into the soil, and felt Mom's warmth, Grandpa's strength, in every blade of grass. This was our land, reclaimed, reborn. Justice wasn't just winning in court. It was this people together, free, on ground that held my family's heart. I sighed, long and deep, and let the tears come. They tasted like home.